And in a record-breaking weekend, Milan-Juve managed to break the record for the most boring event to ever take place in history, taking the title off any match of tennis. So congratulations, Fonseca and Motta. You managed to break the record. We thank you. Welcome to the Anglo-Italian pod. As always, my name is Rory, and I'm joined by my very good friends Adam and Andrea. Andrea, how you doing, man?
Good, thank you. Yeah, I think I agree. I survived that game as well. It was a horrific watch, but we managed to find some good games after that. But other than that, yeah, it was a good weekend.
Thankfully, the weekend did improve. I was talking to one of my students who is a Milan season ticket holder, and the first thing he said when he came into the classroom today was, I nearly fell asleep in the Curva. I could not believe how boring that game was. It seemed like he was genuinely mentally scarred by it. So, yeah, impressive almost. Adam, how was your weekend?
Yeah, good, thank you. I wasn't kind of bashed around by Stormbird. I did fear for Sesame Street. It has to be said if something's being called after a Sesame Street character. But I think I echo the sentiments. This has been not the most noticeable weekend in Serie A, but we will try our best, Rory, to jazz it up, right? And I'm going to let you kind of intro the kind of fun stories, which was enjoyable to read as well. And I'm sure we'll discuss in more detail, right?
Well, absolutely. Thankfully, the title race is still absolutely thrilling, and it looks like neither Milan or Juve are going to be involved in that, so we can thank our lucky stars for that. But we did have Lazio continuing their incredible run to getting a 3-0 win against 10-man Bologna. Very impressive. Lots to talk about in that game. We had Parma and Atalanta having a lot of fun down there. That was a game we were quite excited about, and it definitely didn't disappoint. Atalanta with a 3-1 win. Vieira made his debut as a Serie A manager in a 2-2 draw for Genoa against Cagliari in a basement battle. Inter, Thuram absolutely ran Hellas ragged. When Hellas lose, they really do lose. And Fiorentina continued their incredible run, Andrea. Another win away at Como. The party continues. But where is it going to end up? We're all excited. Guys, we're going to take a very quick break. Oh, no, we're not. I'm going to clip that out. There are stories that did catch our eye this week, starting with, let's go, Adam. Del Piero could be making a return to Calcio. This is exciting for everyone, right?
Yeah, certainly, because he is potentially a candidate for the presidency of the FIGC, which will definitely be something of a revolutionary spot in terms of, like, I suppose, really getting some new blue sky thinking into the organisation. I think everyone has the sentiment that Del Piero is their favourite Juventus man of all time. And that's even for those that do hate Juventus. But more importantly, I think he's got good ideas. I think he's quite a stable person in terms of his opinions. And I think he will try and revolutionise the game in a positive way. Certainly has a lot of appreciation for the lower leagues, which will definitely be, good sounds in terms of the progression that Serie A needs. But certainly I think he's starting to really understand the game from a more economical kind of point of view and the reach of what Serie A could have especially in America. So good positive news from that point of view anyway.
Yeah, Andrea, I think it's a great thing that it's like someone, as Adam alluded to, that is like universally loved in Italy. Like to be a Juve player and not have 95% of the country despise you is genuinely impressive. So it's like, it's really good that he's a very unifying figure. Like, is this the kind of face that, world recognized face, universally loved, new ideas? Is this kind of like the right time for someone like that to take over Italian football?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's a big step we need to take in a new direction as well, because I think we've kind of fallen back a bit in the last few years with the national kind of like how it all works out and stuff. But it's also the fact that we're getting people who actually generally know football, and I think that's the key. And we've already seen Buffon get a really big role in the national team as well. So these type of players, I don't mind getting the whole 06 team there. I'd love it. But I think it's great though. I just think it's new ideas. Del Piero as well. We must say as well. He's had experience in America, doing stuff there, coaching as well. So he's already implemented kind of some stuff in his own personal journey as well. So he's more than capable to be a real good influence there. And I think it's about time. I still can't believe Gravina stayed on even after the Euros, how bad it was. So I think it should have come earlier, but now's and more than ever is a great time. So yeah, I'm looking forward. I really hope he can get there. And like you said, the most important thing is he's liked by everyone, and that will go far.
Well, we might need to crack Vincenzo Iaquinta out of prison if we want to get them all into jobs. I'm not sure if he's still serving time, but he definitely was at one point. I'll have to Google and see what he's up to these days. But as always, guys, the more things change, the more they stay the same. And we've had the classic Calcio story this week, all the way down in Serie C, as Piacenza managed to sack 3 coaches in 24 hours. Absolutely love this story. It kind of went wild on Blue Sky this week. So they sacked Carmine Palato and director of sport Alessio Sestu in the morning. They hired Simone Bentivoglio to take over. He held one training session, which was interrupted by an angry fan protest. So they sacked him, and then now they've rehired a manager they've had previously, Stefano Rossini, and it's now going to be his 3rd stint at the club, I think, Rossini. Adam, when I saw this story, this is just the most Italian football story ever. We thought no one would take it further than Salernitana, but Piacenza, fair play, they've absolutely nailed it.
Yeah, that's one way of getting your club back on the map, right? By being famous for sacking 3 individuals in one day. Yeah, I was trying to rack my brains if I had a kind of work experience similar to that. I don't think I have. I've seen maybe drama in the sense of someone being dismissed that I didn't anticipate to happen because they had like a conduct hearing or something like that. But yeah, certainly this is like great in terms of Serie A culture. It continues, right? And yeah, as you allude to, that second coach, the reason for it was because his association with gambling, which was why the fans obviously took exception to that. But yeah, what a great story. What a way to put them back on the map. And it's been a long time since I've heard the name Piacenza involved anyway.
Yeah, well, they used to be Serie A regulars, right? But not so much anymore. You have very quickly reminded me of when I was working at a school I'm not going to name, in a country I'm not going to name. One teacher did get sacked after only doing 40 minutes of a 1 hour 30 lesson. And as he left early, the manager told him, yeah, you don't need to come back tomorrow. Don't worry. You can get that flight back to the UK. So that's the closest I've ever got to this kind of situation. But before I get deeper into my career, we're going to take a very quick break, guys. We're going to talk about football, and we'll see you there. And here we are, game week 13 in Serie A, and it all went off. We're going to start with the Sunday evening box office slot, I think. This is a game I really enjoyed, one that I think didn't disappoint after a little bit of a disappointment before with Napoli Roma. We're going to talk about Lazio 3, Bologna 0. Now, obviously, the turning point of this game was, of course, Pobega being sent off. It definitely kind of... Bologna were kind of in the game, but even at that point, it looked like Lazio were definitely the dominant side. But Andrea, I'm going to go to you. How frustrated would you be as Italiano if you see one of your midfielders act like that within the first half hour of a game? It doesn't really help, does it?
No, it's not forgivable. Honestly, it's terrible. When you think about the context of the game as well, it was always already going to be a close game, and the way the yellow cards happened, and they were quite quick as well, how it happened. It's just, at that level, it shouldn't be happening. And it was only going to get worse. When you're playing a team in form like Lazio as well, you're literally setting yourself up to lose. So, yeah, it is frustrating. Although I think a question can be asked about the way Italiano reacted to it, with his tactics and substitutions. I think that'll be something to talk about as well. But certainly for his sake, yes, the red card, it was, yeah, at that level, it shouldn't be happening.
Yeah, I did see Friends of the Pod Journey to Serie A podcast cursing everything about Pobega and his performance and saying they're not quite sure why he's still at the club. He was compared to I think they said the Serie A equivalent of Harry Maguire, which I thought, oh God, let's hold back a little bit. But Adam, the only thing we have in our notes is from the first half, Bologna's shirt is quite nice. We couldn't quite decide. I felt it looked like a training top. What do you think about it?
Yeah, it was pretty much like training top vibes. I'm not decided if I really will buy that shirt, to be brutally honest, because I think the badge lets it down. And that shows you, I think, the main highlight of that first half, because up until that point of Tommaso Pobega getting a second yellow card, yeah, there wasn't really much to talk about. Lazio probably on the edge of it, kind of threatened a bit, but they did seem to miss, I think, Nuno Tavares on that left-hand side a bit. And as much as I put in my notes that I complimented, Luca Pellegrini for the performance that he displayed on the actual night, I think they were missing some energy. It was fair to say. I think that was what they were missing. But obviously, second half came to light. They took advantage of that man advantage, and yeah, they. It took a while. I think people had to be patient, really. But eventually, as soon as the first goal went in, then the second was really forthcoming in that sense. So yeah, a lot of credit to Marco Baroni, I think, for being patient, because I think it's very easy to get kind of winded in these kind of situations where it's very frustrations. I think, as Andrea alluded to, I think Vincenzo Italiano didn't really play it to his strengths. I think they could have done a lot more. I think obviously the Orsolini injury potentially also played a part in terms of how that second half panned out as well, because I was thinking that maybe Italiano did this as a tactical decision, but it appears that due to the knock that he took from trying to ensure that there was a block on one of the Lazio attacks, he couldn't continue. But I still think they had the personnel, Rory, to potentially get something out of the game. But again, I think there was too much reliance potentially on Castro up front as well.
Yeah, well, I think, look, we've talked about in the past how Italiano teams aren't exactly free scoring. And I think once you're down to 10 men, that's obviously going to disappear quite quickly. But I was really impressed by just Castro's work rate. Like, the amount of graft he put in, just getting fouled, basically, getting the shit kicked out of him, but managing to win free kicks, holding onto the ball, winding up Guendouzi, whatever it is. He was just really properly grafting. I think he's a player that I'm quite excited about. At the beginning of the season, I wasn't quite sure if he was ready to step up. And I thought, Bologna obviously losing Xerxes. I was like, I wonder how he's going to fill this gap. But at the moment, he seems to be doing a very good job. I thought he equipped himself very well last night. It was a very hard-working performance from Bologna. They did make it difficult for Lazio. But Andrea, the substitutions from Italiano, obviously the Orsolini one was forced, but where do you think he went wrong?
I just think the shape. I think Moro coming on as well. I felt like they should have tried to keep it out wide, tried to stretch them as much as possible. I felt in the end it kept, like you said, it was too reliant on Castro catching loose balls. It was just very unrealistic, and I feel like a bit of game management as well. I feel like he didn't need to rush with lots of subs, the couple subs either. I think he could have kept it. If the Orsolini one was an injury, that's fair enough, but I still think he could have managed the game a bit more, and I think that's been always an issue with him. He's got one way of playing. He wants to play even with the 10 men, and I think that it wasn't never really going to work. And to be fair, in that first half, even though it was like 10 minutes, they done pretty decent to hang on, and they looked comfortable. So that I just thought they could have stuck with that in the second half, and waited till about the 60th minute, see what this game of the feel of the game, and then maybe done a few changes and so on. But I just think, I think he panicked a bit too much and did him a bit early, and I think it just cut the wind out of the team. And then, like you said, it just ended up just being a long balls to Castro, and it's very hard to win a game just by doing that. So, I think that's what was the main issues, I'd say.
There was a real lack of creativity going forward, definitely, and just over reliance, I think. But there'll be a lot of Lazio fans screaming, going, "Why are we not talking about Lazio and how incredible they've been?" Their last defeat was the 1-0 defeat against Juve when they were down to 10 men. Right? They've won every single game since that as well. By the way, like, this is a team that, how excited can we get about this team? They're very young in general. Like, beyond Pedro and Vicino, they're a pretty young team. Like, the rest of them are still there's a lot of exciting prospects there. Like, Adam, maybe I was just a year early in my Scudetto shout. Like, what's happening here? Do we think they could really challenge? We're throwing everyone into the hat at the moment, but I think they're playing really exciting football. They're on one of the best runs in the league. Like, I'm not seeing much that's stopping them at the moment.
I think for me, it's just probably the depth in terms of quality, potentially, that will let them down. However, we have to give them a lot of credit for the form that they are displaying right now. And a lot of credit has to go towards Baroni because of what he's achieved. I think a lot of people still wrote him off after that move from Hellas Verona. I think people weren't necessarily seeing this as inspired kind of appointment after obviously you had Maurizio Sarri and before that Igor Tudor. We forget about Igor Tudor's reign kind of there as well. So I think this says a lot about the group of players that he's got at his disposal. He's getting them to play a stylistic style of football, whilst being, I think controlling of games. I think the emergence of players like Rovella, for example, I think obviously he was brought in under Sarri, but I think he's really pushed on in his game, and you saw that by the fact that he was included in the Italy national squad in that respect as well. So I think there's a few players, as you allude to, that we should also call out. Like I say, Luca Pellegrini had a good game for me. Matteo Zaccagni was back to his kind of usual self as well. I think that there's a good balance within that squad, and the shithousery is the thing that we will allude to, which is Matteo Guendouzi, who I think the maturity of the guy has just really upped in terms of levels. As much as I wasn't really appreciative of his time at Arsenal, I think he's definitely, since then, obviously at that spell at Marseille, and since his time at Lazio, he's actually really looks really forthcoming. I think he drives the energy, but also the progression in terms of how they attack the opposition. And also, like we say, the shithousery, because even Italiano had a go in the tunnel before the second half. So, everyone's got to have an appreciation for what he does on the pitch as well, because he seems to wind up people the wrong way, but in a positive manner for your side in that respect. So, I think they will do well this season. It's fair to say. I think I could see them pushing into the top 6 position by the end of the season, definitely.
No, I really like the makeup of this team. I think, look, Guendouzi, he clearly has matured as a player. As a person, maybe not so much, but as a player, he's definitely matured. I think, what I always enjoyed from him at Arsenal was when the game wasn't going your way, he would spark that. He would throw in that tackle. He would do that thing that would get the crowd up, that would get his players riled up, that would get a bit of energy if the game was going flat. And I think you have that as well as what is a very technically good footballer and someone who can do both sides of the game. He can tackle, he can track back, he can defend, but also his range of passing is fantastic. He always manages to find himself time on the ball. The amount of times he just spins away from his marker, opens up another side of the pitch. Technically, he's a very, very good footballer. So I can see why Arsenal wanted him and why we bought him. But then I can see why Arteta was like, nah, enough of you. I don't want that live around the training ground, right? But I think I'm really enjoying him and Ravella alongside each other is a really exciting, creative midfield there. I think that's really good to watch. But also defensively, they look super solid at the moment. And Providel, we were kind of worried about a little bit at the beginning of the season, Andrea, but Lazio now, they seem to have got this defence kind of fairly organised, and off the ball, they're quite hard to pull apart, right?
Yeah, absolutely. They look really organised, and I think it does come, like you said, from the midfield as well. The Guendouzi and Ravella there as well, sitting in front of them. I think it just works really well. But yeah, I just think it's just the consistency and also just the way they're set up is just perfect for them. And they are becoming hard to beat as well. And the games they've lost, they've only just lost as well. There are quite a few of them as well. So they're in games all the time. And the attacking third, I think Adam's right. They do lack a bit of depth, but at the moment, those players who are playing are really stepping up. Nossin, I don't think Nossin even start as well. So you've got players that weren't even starting that were impactful at the start of the season. So. Yeah, so I think it looks encouraging, and I think I do agree they might lack in later on in the season, but they've just got to continue what they're doing and just see where it takes them, because they could really impress this season for sure.
And they're going really well in Europe as well. It'll be really interesting to see how they get on in Europe, because they're absolutely flying there.
Yeah.
I do have to say, Gigo came off the bench, scored. Isaacson came off the bench, got an assist. Deli Bashiru came off the bench, got a goal. The players they brought on did have an impact. Again, it's against 10 men in a game that was already won. But clearly these players are able to come on, show a bit of confidence, make a bit of an impact. So maybe there's a starting signal there that there are some impact players off the bench for them to turn to. I'm excited about this team. I think I really enjoy watching them whenever they're on. I think we said it earlier in the season. Whenever Lazio play, I want to sit and watch them, which is not how I would have felt a couple of years ago. One slight moment, I do always get a little bit nervous when I see a gladiatorial style celebration in a Lazio shirt. I had to turn around to my girlfriend and be like, that wasn't fascist, was it? She was like, no, I don't think so. I was like, okay, cool, right, that's fine. Just need to check. If ever there's a reference to gladiators, I get a little bit nervous. But a fantastic win for Lazio, and they continue their incredible run of form. For Bologna, they're looking a little bit better, but Pabega's an idiot, basically. It kind of puts a bit of an end to their slight upturn in form. But let's go to the next game, and let's talk about... did we say Parma-Atalanta next? Yeah, should we do Parma-Atalanta? That was a fun game.
Mm-hmm.
That was nice,
yeah,
right?
Why not?
Adam, let's do it. Cancellieri scored an incredible goal for Parma. How sick was that?
That was an amazing hit, to be fair. That's probably the only kind of standing point from a Parma perspective, because whilst they did have some counter-attacks as well, pretty wasteful in front of goal. And I think that's the worry for Parma at this stage, is that they are slowly being dragged into the relegation fight right now. And if it wasn't for the fact that there's teams below them that are probably worse than them right now, they're probably in the middle of that fight. But I think we also have to call out the fact that they've come against an Atalanta side that look every inch as potentials of the Scudetto winners as well. Because with the fact that we heard that Scalvini and Scamacca are back in training, for example, with this squad, the way that Gasperini is rotating them, it really does feel like they've got all the credentials. I think the only kind of starting point that I would say that may be a doubt for Atalanta is if Ederson's ever injured or out of a game, then they don't necessarily have a direct replacement for his energy. I think they do lack that kind of dynamism, because obviously with Cop Miners transferring in the summer, they haven't got anyone potentially that can really do it. I was expecting maybe more from Samardzic at this point. Maybe he is the answer, but we just haven't seen that right now. And Bresciani is another candidate that could potentially fill in the void. But I think there's no one quite like Ederson in terms of his goal contributions and his involvements. And I think that's the difference for Atalanta's season so far, is how much he's grown since that transfer from Salernitana a few seasons back, and how much Gasperini's kind of like made a play out of him. The fact that he's been talked about as potentially being a target for Man United now kind of tells you all you need to know about what Gasperini's done with his career as well. So a lot of credit for that, as well as the finishes as well. Adamela Lookman looks incredible in this game as well, Rory. I don't think he gets enough credit sometimes, but he is just overshadowed by the fact that it's little Atalanta overachieving, I feel, sometimes. And he's just one of those kind of rough diamonds that's really kind of come to fruition. So, yeah, a lot of credit to Atalanta for their approach in this game, because, yeah, they deserve this victory.
Yeah, well, seeing Scalvini make his return to Serie A was a beautiful sight to see. As you said, really adds depth to their defence, which is already looking absolutely incredible. Andrea, another game where Hein just effortlessly pockets one of the best strikers in the league. He stood out again, right? Like Boni has been causing problems for everyone, but it was light work.
Very light work. It's just commanding. It's honestly, again, just another incredible performance. Just where Scalvini comes into the team now, I don't know. Just honestly, he's that good. He's been that good. I don't know, but no, I'm sure he'll find a way. But yeah, he's been incredible, and it's been consistent as well. But to a high standard, which is really really encouraging for Atalanta.
Yeah, and it's great to see. And this attack, they've kind of like Charles de Ketelaere isn't even starting at the moment. Like they're continuing with what seems to be working at the moment with the Lookman, Retegui, and Pasalic just behind him. And it's just, again, it's what we've talked about, the versatility that they have, the depth that they have. Like when this attack starts to get found out or stops working a little bit, like, okay, we'll just take out Pasalic, bring in Charles de Ketelaere, and then again, teams have to change their game plan. They have to adapt how they're preparing. It's just, yeah, they seem to have a team for every situation at the moment, which is super exciting for them. But another goal for Retegui. Incredible season for him. I'm not sure. I keep expecting this scoring run to kind of stop at some point, but it doesn't seem to be stopping. Adam, he has a massive shout at Capocannoniere this year if he can continue and gasp. He is the striker whisperer, right? He does get the best goals out of strikers.
He does, but I think a lot of credit to Matteo Retegui as well for embracing this kind of change. I think obviously we knew there was kind of a rough player, someone that was going to be unearthed in time. Obviously, I think there was a lot of doubts about his credentials as well, beyond just being a fox in the box style striker. I think he's really starting to deliver on the other aspects of his game. And I think the fact that even Gasperini has kind of benched him occasionally, he's not necessarily been a starter, and he's still contributing a lot of goals to this team, shows you how important he's kind of filled the void of what was Scamacca. Scamacca was kind of seen as potentially this kind of starlet within the attack, but actually it is all down to Retegui now. So I think there's a huge dilemma when they are all fit and firing. Who does he go with? But I think that's also a nice optionality that Gasperini has, because you've got players like De Ketelaere and Ademola Lookman that can kind of fit behind these two potentially. But then, you've got the optionality of potentially even playing both of them in terms of Scamacca and Retegui. So it would be fascinating, because I think that would be almost evoking that Sassuolo vibes of Scamacca and Raspadori together. And, with Berardi as well, you could see an Ademola Lookman or De Ketelaere really going into a front three as well. So, it's absolutely incredible. We're talking about Atalanta with the depth that they've got this season and the fact that they can rotate it. I think that is just testament to, I think, the ambition that also the club have supported Gasperini in the summer. And they're really bearing the fruits now. So hopefully, they don't get too many more injuries and they can push the bigger clubs.
Well, fingers crossed. I'm really enjoying watching this ride unfold. If the scenes in Bergamo would be absolutely incredible, so we can kind of hope maybe it will happen. But for Parma, Andrea, they are kind of sleepwalking again into a relegation battle. They are currently 2 points above the relegation zone. I was just looking at their fixtures that are coming up. Their next games are Lazio at home, Inter away. Then they have a bit easier Verona at home, Roma away. Like, they've got 2 big games coming up here where they're not really going to be expecting to get much. Like, how do you see this season going for them? Because I think people have just kind of assumed that they'd be okay, but their form really has been, like, their run of fixtures have been pretty horrendous.
Yeah, I think it has been very on-off, and in particular as well, I think stylistically they've looked great on the eye, but sometimes it's been too much, like it's been overpowered rather than actually, you got to win the game. You can play nice football, but you've got to win the game. And I feel like that the only way I'd say for them is that they can just lose the game like that, like in a space of a 5-minute, 10-minute, and they just switch off. And but they play such amazing football, and it's crazy to think. But I think, yes, the fixtures will be tough, and I think they've actually played well against the bigger sides, to be fair. So I think they will go into there with confidence. But overall, I think they do enough. I mean, out of all the teams in that battle, they're a team that create chances constantly, that they can really, push teams to limits. Question marks will be on the Boni situation if he does leave. What they kind of do. I kind of wonder if they might put the I don't know if I'm going to pronounce the name right, the Bernizak player.
Beneček,
he looks. Yeah. I really like Beneček. Yeah, Adam will save the pronunciation there. But he looks really good. I wonder if they might maybe use him as Boni's place if he does leave. But I think they've got enough in that team. They've got a lot of creativity, a lot of positivity in that team to score goals and win games, and they look better than those teams around there. So I think they should be okay. I just think the frustrating thing for Parma is that they could really push up the table if they really kind of had a bit more concentration in the last 20 minutes of games. I think they've lost quite a lot of games in those crucial minutes. So they could really have a really great season, not just one where they just stay up. Even though staying up is the priority, they could really push on. So it'd be a bit of a shame if they don't, but I just feel like, as you guys have alluded to, I feel like we will kind of see it kind of be like that, where they just do enough to stay up and get a few more wins here and there against some big teams or whatever. But yeah, I think the potential's there, but yeah, we'll have to see. But certainly they should be okay.
Yeah, I think you make a good point about the lapses in concentration. Just like Southampton have said, play really nice stuff, but just make mistakes constantly. But yeah, I think they're always exciting to watch, right? Their games are always entertaining. But Atalanta, they keep rolling on, and we're just going to have to see. This title race is going to be an absolute all-timer. I am excited. Let's go down towards the bottom of the table. Before we talk about the return of Ranieri, let's talk about the debut of Mr. Patrick Vieira in Genoa. This game, well, to start off, Genoa looked absolutely horrendous. It was grey, it was cold, it was raining. It looked like I did not want to be there. It was awful. And the football kind of matched the weather, I'll be honest. It wasn't one for the purists. Cagliari managed to get 2 penalties, or Genoa managed to gift Cagliari 2 penalties. But I think Genoa showed a little bit more quality than they've shown in the last couple of weeks. Now, it could just be new manager bounce. It could be a lot of things. But I think there seemed to be a little bit more structure. Players like Vitinha coming on later on, he looked quite promising. There was a little bit of excitement there. Like, Andrea, did you see a marked improvement in Genoa? Was there something to hold on to there?
Not really, to be honest. I think you make a good point. I think they did look a bit more structured, but I still feel like they still were a bit flat. And I really don't know if Vieira's the right man to kind of take them forward. But certainly they did look a little bit better. But I still think they will need to make quite a few signings in January for sure. I just think they lack that creativity. I think Miretti is good, and he's a bit more deeper. They kind of need someone in that final third to kind of create a bit more. So I just think, I mean, we can't go back on it, but I think Gilardino with the January transfer window may have worked. I still think it would have worked. But going on Vieira, I don't see much difference in terms of stylistic play, though. That's the only thing I say. I agree that they looked a bit structured, but I wonder if it was the new manager bounce, and they're against Cagliari as well.
Yeah.
But this is a game you've got to get a result. You've got to win, and it's really disappointing. So it doesn't look good stead. But I think, that there needs to be a serious look at January, because right now it looks quite bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they rely far too much on Frendrup as well. Like, if he doesn't do anything, nobody does anything in that midfield. He's that only runner into that box, that only kind of creative spark. He took his goal really well, and they responded super quickly to Cagliari going ahead. Like, I think there was 2-3 minutes between the goals. 4 minutes between the goals. Like, they really... And at that point, I was like, okay, right, Genoa, come on now, like, spark yourselves into life, get going, and it just slowed down. Everything was like the last ball was going out of play. Everything was still a little bit kind of lackluster. And as you said, against Cagliari, they're really strong at home, but away they tend not to be. And this was a real opportunity for them. And I think the players like Pinamonti just so wasteful in front of goal. But I think, Adam, I'm going to ask you, like, Vieira, his career managerial-wise, the clubs often get off to really good starts and then it kind of peters out. Like, at Crystal Palace, there was 18 months where it was going quite well, maybe a year when it was going quite well, and then it very quickly went quite badly. The same thing happened at Nice. The same thing happened at Strasbourg. Like, do you see him getting that long in the Genoa job? Do you see the same pattern repeating? Like, how do you see this going? Because obviously there's the Balotelli drama as well that we need to cover as well. But how do you see this going? Because there's a lot of pressure, but also none at the same time. So I think people expect Genoa to go down at this point with the issues off the pitch.
Yeah. I think he's been brought in more for connections, potentially. That maybe his network is far greater than what Gilardino probably could have attracted to the club. So I think that's the reason and rationale behind getting someone like Vieira. I was personally shocked when the news came about that Gilardino had been sacked. So as Andrea has already said, I also believe, there was no kind of... I don't think they made the right decision in sacking him, because I think given the circumstances of you've already had 3 main players stripped out of your club, sold on elsewhere, he hasn't really had the opportunity to really kind of invest that into players that maybe he wanted. And you had the drama of what happened behind the scenes with the 7-7 group as well, for example. So I think in the grand scheme of things, Gilardino probably wouldn't have done any worse a job than what Vieira has been brought in to do. Going forward, though, with Vieira, I think, look... Yeah, like you say, probably there's nothing else that he can do wrong in this moment in time. Whether he can have a longer kind of spell at the club is a question mark. I think it all depends on the finances and what happens behind the scenes, personally, because I think it's just too much going on in the background for there to be a really kind of considered kind of footballing approach here at the club at the moment. So I think for them, it's all about survival, and that's it for now. And yeah, like I say, I think Vieira's been brought in to try and attract those bigger names to the club that potentially they might be able to grab and maybe sell on. And I think that's the only reason he's been brought in. So I think it would be a question mark whether that this is also kind of the point in Vieira's kind of coaching career where he kind of needs this to be a success for him to be kind of considered like really a serious contender for any of the bigger jobs going forward, because at every club, as he alluded to, he's always had either falling out or it just hasn't petered in the right direction for him. So as hard as it seems to be for him, sometimes it just feels like now he needs to make the most of this opportunity.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think this is kind of his last chance at a kind of top flight job, really. Like, if this doesn't go well, then maybe he's back down to the second divisions in countries and kind of having to relearn his trade, because your name can only get you so far. Like, Frank Lampard has learned that pretty quickly, but like your name can only get you so far. So I think, yeah, I obviously am hugely invested in Vieira as a manager because I adore the man, but I'm glad Arsenal went for Arteta and not him, because he was a candidate when we appointed Arteta. I'm glad we took Arteta and not Vieira, I will say that. But for Cagliari, Andrea, they do refuse to lose. They do have a fighting spirit. They do keep going. Yes, they were kind of gifted the penalties, but there was enough here of Davide Nicola, classic Davide Nicola, just making sure if you can't win, don't lose, right?
Yeah, and I think in contrast to Genoa, that is the key difference. You've got a team that are fighting to the end. They look a bit more dynamic. They've got some creativity as well in the final third. But yeah, they seem like they can grind results, and I think that's going to be key because it will be game by game, and it might go to the final game. So it's important for them. It's a great result. They could have potentially won it, to be fair. I think they might go away thinking they could have got something. They could have got a bit more, but they'll take it. And like I said, they've been taking it quite a few times now, grinded quite a few wins. So that's impressive. And they could be okay for this season.
I do have to say, both the goalkeepers made really good saves in this game as well. Leale and Sherry both made some really good saves. I think there was like two players that came out with a lot of credit. I wasn't really aware of Leale that much, and then he pulled off his incredible save. Like, Jesus Christ, who's this guy? So yeah, two very good goalkeeping performances there. And Cagliari leave with the point. The last game we're going to talk about in depth, I suppose. And let's go to the Stadio Diego Armando Maradona, as we had the Derby della Sole and Napoli 1, Roma 0. Adam, should it have been more? Was there any improvement in Roma? Let's talk about Roma first. They were definitely improved, right?
Just about.
They were definitely improved, right?
They improved in the sense that they didn't concede more than one, I suppose. Yeah, it's very hard, isn't it? I think they were against a better side on the day, but I think also Antonio Conte kind of alluded to it in his press conference. He wasn't necessarily happy with the way that they approached it in the match. I think he called out Scott McTominay for maybe struggling in this match in particular. But I also think there was not many clear-cut opportunities for Napoli, which is probably a credit to Roma in that respect. They made it quite tight, made it difficult for them. I think the issues continue to be that creativity at the top and Dovbyk, because that's probably Andrea's favourite player at the moment. But it's really difficult, isn't it, if you're a Roma fan, to get behind this, because there wasn't much to really call out. I think there's the opportunities that Dovbyk has, and you're kind of cursing at the fact that how did he not get it on target, for example. Given that I would be under the assumption anyway that Ranieri's probably drilled him a number of times in training about set pieces and making the most of it, and I think that's what he did quite cleverly at Calgary. He got them to be really quite good on those set pieces and making the most of their opportunities, whereas it just doesn't feel like they've got that right now, and I think he's still trying to find his squad. It was good to see, for example, Mats Hummels come on as well. I thought he looked quite good in this match. But yeah, I don't think there's too many positives that you can draw about this performance yet. But look, steady progress is probably the best words to kind of say, look, he's made them difficult, hopefully going forward, and they've got a bit more of a favourable run where he can potentially do something, but I still think it's going to be difficult in the next few games for them as well.
Well, I think the substitutions are interesting to talk about because Andrea, he did make two changes at halftime. So he brings on Mats Hummels and he brings on Baldanzi at halftime, kind of to shake things up a little bit. I think Baldanzi did make a bit of a difference. I think he was a bit more lively and effective than Pellegrini was. But then the one that's caught all the headlines today is Dybala only getting 3 minutes on the pitch, basically brought on in the 88th minute. It seems odd, right? When you're chasing a game and you've got this occasionally world-class player that you're not bringing him on. Like, can you explain that? I found it quite confusing that he was just sat on the bench the entire time.
Yeah, I think it's very odd. I think the one thing, and it's a bit weird to say this, but I just felt like Ranieri just didn't believe they were going to get anything, and I think he just kind of stuck with it. Like, I feel like the bounce of him being there as a legend kind of would have gave the fans a little bit of a lift. And then I just saw that starting lineup, and it was the exact same lineup like in the previous week, and I thought that was really disappointing. You got a chance to kind of step your mark and try and. It would have gave a bit of a lift, even if they lost 2-0, 3-0, it would have been like, you know what, he changed it up. This player looked decent, that came in, but it was the same team, and it just felt like he just went there for the draw, and it wasn't really more than that. And I think the Dybala sub kind of furthers that as well. That 3 minutes, he's not. I mean, Dybala's a magician, but in 3 minutes, he's got to perform like Houdini or something. Like it's not going to happen, honestly. Like so, I was just quite disappointed with Ranieri's approach. I just felt like, and it's weird to say because I don't want to disrespect the fact that what he was doing, but I just felt like he was going for a draw, and I feel like he's just thinking of the first home game he's in charge. Maybe he'll have that completely changed to the kind of lineup he wanted. That would be the only thing that, if I was a Roma fan, I'd be kind of upset with that. He stuck with that 11 that weren't doing well. The fullbacks, Angelino and Celik, we've said it for time. They have not been good enough. They've not been to the standard, and they played. But I do think though they were efficient enough, and I think Adam was saying before, if Dovik takes that chance, it's a different game. So they were still in it. They did have some sort of good moments, but overall, I just think they didn't really try and go for the jugular. Really, try and go for that. Different change. Something to completely off guard Conte and Napoli, but it was too predictable in the end.
Yeah, I think, look, Kvara didn't have his greatest game, but watching him against Celik was honestly cruel at times. Like, the way he was just toying with him and going past him. It was like cutting on the outside, inside. Celik just could not keep up with him. And El Shaarawy, as much as we love him, he's not giving the defensive cover either there. So I think what frustrated me with the Roma performance was that Dovbyk was always running so far to goal. Like, he was always so far away from goal. And he's just like running for like 30 yards. And you're like, this isn't what he's supposed to be doing. Like, I understand the offside track, but you cannot have him trying to carry the ball that far. Like, he's just asking a fish to ride a bike, if you know what I mean. Like, just try and play to the strengths of this bloke. And he was just always so far from goal. And I just think it instantly took away that goal threat. But yeah, I think you're right. I think there was a point when later on in the game, there was kind of an angle of Claudio Ranieri, and he was clearly talking to one of the players, and he just kind of went like, stop, it's fine. Like, and it just kind of summed it up like, yeah, okay, 1-0, we're fine. We'll just go home and on to the next one. But Adam, for Napoli, we've talked a little bit about how Napoli keep getting away with 1-0 wins. Is this a performance that against a better side, maybe they don't get the win here, and this is a problem?
Yeah, and I think this is definitely a thing with Napoli. I don't think they're necessarily the complete article in that respect, and I think that'll be music to Antonio Conte's ears, because that will mean that he'll want some more money in January. But yeah, I think that there is going to be some frustrations along the way, especially with this team. I think they are still very pragmatic as a side. I don't know necessarily, apart from Kvaratskhelia, who is that attacking outlet. I know Politano's there, for example, but I don't necessarily or have seen that kind of substance from him this season in that respect. So I think that would be my concern, is that there isn't anyone that can kind of drive with the ball, like a Zielinski, for example, who they previously had. Someone that can create those moments, that can break deadlocks, for example. And as much as they've got Lukaku, it sounds like they've kind of got earmarked Bone now from Parma to be someone that will be the backup striker for Lukaku in those occasions as well. So it looks like they're well stocked up front. But for me, it's just that creativity. And again, it could be very similar to that kind of Roma kind of scenario where they're relying on wing backs in the likes of Di Lorenzo and on the other side, Matthias as well, for example, Vieira. Are they enough? Are they enough for the season? I don't know. I think it will be interesting when they've got back-to-back games coming up shortly with the Coppa Italia, for example, whether that kind of starts hampering their kind of momentum in terms of their form. And we know they have had moments this season where, for example, they lose games when they're least expected to lose them as well. So, I think this isn't really at a point where we kind of conclude Napoli are going to struggle, but I think there are the early signs, shall we say, that maybe they aren't quite the complete squad yet.
Yeah, I think there was just a lack of real cutting edge up front, right? The goal was really well worked. Like Di Lorenzo getting the ball, like making that run. Now there was an ocean of space, but making that run and getting the ball across to Lukaku, that was like the one real quality of like quick move, quality ball, like well-timed run. That was the one real moment of it. I think the rest of the game, it was very much Napoli just tiredly kind of trying to break down a Roma team that, as Andrea said, kind of definitely there for a draw. But they did get the win. That does still leave them 1 point clear at the top of the table, even. So the good run, the good form continues for them. Elsewhere, very quickly in Serie A, as we do a very quick roundup, Thuram absolutely ran the show. He's back a little bit with a 5-0 win over Verona. But more importantly, Andrea, Correa getting a bloody goal and an assist. I tell you what, when he plays, he makes a difference, right? Inter fans, I think they all thought he'd gone. It's incredible to see him back, right?
Yeah, where did he come from? Honestly, like I thought he was gone as well. No, I think if you're a Verona fan and you're seeing Correa tearing your team up, you should be worried. Honestly, you should be very worried. I mean, no disrespect to Correa, like he's a good player, but to come in
he's
like
a great
that,
chef. He's a great
he's
chef.
Not prime Maradona. He's not prime Maradona.
Like, he was running through that defense like they weren't there. Like I know it's a cliche to say, but it really was. He just ran through them like it was so easy. Like, yes, but yeah, no, he did have a good game. But I think Verona did help him look like a good game for him. But yeah,
it's incredible. Well. When they lose games, they really do lose incredibly badly. I did see a comment because Verona have now officially gone into Retiro. So this is when a team is very naughty in Italy. They get sent to a camp somewhere where they're not allowed to see their loved ones and they have to train 24 hours a day. And Verona have gone into Retiro. And I did see a comment on one of their social media posts that was like, that's what Correa will do to a team. Like, this is the effect of Joaquin Correa. They've all been taken away from their families. So it'll be interesting to see if that has any effect there. Elsewhere, Como 0, Fiorentina 2. Andrea, Moise Kean again, and Yassine Adli for my Fanta Calcio, the legend. Another impressive performance by Fiorentina. Como, disappointing?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just one of those games where you've got a team who've got Serie A quality, and then you've got a team that really have a lot of Serie B quality in their team. To be honest, I just thought Como, they didn't offer anything throughout the game. They just stuck around there, but they didn't really offer much. Fiorentina, I don't think they were that impressive. I thought they done well, but they didn't really. They could have killed the game off earlier if they actually went for it, and I think they just knew they were gonna. It felt like they knew they were gonna win. And they just kind of coasted in that game. But another goal from Moise Kean. Looked good again, took his chance. Another one chance, one goal. Not more you can ask from that. But yeah, it keeps the run, and it keeps the another clean sheet as well, and 7 in a row. I think what's impressive as well, and I think last season we lost a lot of games in the crucial period of 60 to 90 minutes. I do believe this is a true stat that I don't think Fiorentina have conceded in that period this season. I'd have to double check it, but I think that could be a case. Yeah. So that says a lot. And Fiorentina have gone into games where they're 1-0 up with about 20 to go against Torino, Genoa, and they've hanged on. I know they're teams they can beat, but it's still important that they stay focused and they grind the result. So that's been the key, and that's kind of gives you a bit of hope going into future games. But yeah, good result at the end.
Absolutely love that. I was delighted when I saw Adley pop up on the score sheet. He's a favourite of the pod, and it's great to see him doing so well. Torino drew 1-1 with Monza. That's all I've got to say about that, really. Empoli have just drawn 1-1 with Udinese, and Lecce are currently winning away to Venezia. Dorgu with the goal there. And of course, Milan and Juventus technically happened, but everyone is desperately trying to forget it. So, including Fonseca, who, did you see his comments after the game? He said, fans do not pay to see this quality of football. I was like, mate, you can change this. It's your decision. Acting like it's someone else's fault. Absolutely incredible. But yeah, that game happened. The highlights I watched on YouTube, they did well to get 2 minutes out of it, I'll be honest. But guys, we are going to leave that there for this Serie A game week. When we come back, we're going to preview all of the European action. It's back and the next round of Serie A games. So we'll see you on the other side. And we are back, and so is the Champions League, the Cool Kids Club, and the Even Cooler Kids Club. And it all starts tonight as you guys are listening, as Milan make the trip over to Slovakia to take on Slovan Bratislava. Inter host RB Leipzig. Maybe an interesting one, though. RB Leipzig have been massively underwhelming in the Champions League this year. Andre, I think Inter should probably get the job done here at home, right?
Yeah, I could see like a 2-0, 2-1. Yeah, I think I'll get it done.
Should be fairly comfortable. Atalanta are heading over to Switzerland to play Young Boys. Again, I was expecting to get the result there. I'm so childish. The name always gets me. But Adam, Aston Villa are hosting Juventus on Wednesday night. Absolutely massive. Obviously, Villa in terrible form. Could Juve go and do what Bayern weren't able to do?
Do you know what? I think Villa will be up for it. They seem to have something about the European competitions this season where they seem to be more up for it than the league matches. So it wouldn't surprise me. And I'm not necessarily convinced by Thiago Motta's Juventus at this stage. I knew this would be the transitional season, but I think the lack of firepower is a concern for Juventus at this stage as well, because the tactics they deployed against Milan kind of sums up what you need to know about the current situation. They've just got nothing at the moment. So, yeah, I think Villa should really try and get a win here. And if I'm not mistaken, they won't be far off from actually qualifying for the next round if they do.
Douglas Luiz returning to his old club as well. It'll be interesting because he's been terrible for Juve this year. So it'll be interesting to see if he can actually put a performance in. And they've beaten Real Madrid. They've beaten Atletico Madrid. But now the real challenge. Lille are heading to Bologna. Andrea, can Italiano pull off a miracle here?
No.
No,
they will be
good.
fine.
I don't think so either.
No.
That one was easy. In the Europa League, we have Lazio hosting Ludogorets in what I assume will be a routine win for the Laziali. And a bit more of an interesting game here. Tottenham, fresh off their humiliating of Man City, will be hosting Claudio Ranieri and Roma. Adam, it would be the most Spurs thing now to lose to an out-of-form Roma, right? But how do you see this game going?
It's all down to how Spurs approach the game, be brutally honest. Just be wary, though, there might be a lot of empty seats because they've basically doubled the pricing for this particular game for Spurs fans. So I did see quotes of 70 million a ticket or a seat, essentially, for this game. So yeah, Spurs fan base not very happy at the pricing strategy of the club. And yeah, I mean, for Roma, this should be a kind of consolidation now, being in Europe. I feel it might be something of an impetus in terms of striking some form, but I just can't see it at this moment in time. I think Ranieri will just kind of just make sure that they don't lose potentially again and just hit Spurs on the break. But yeah, I think Spurs should win this handsomely, personally.
I expect so. And Andrea, your very own team are coming up against the concept of pity or sadness. Will the good times end as Fiorentina take on Pathos?
It's going to be a difficult game, I think. I think both. No, Fiorentina will win. Yeah.
I think we should be okay if you can get over the concept. Let's see. Fiorentina continue to roll on in the Conference League. Let's see how it goes. Adam, we do also have game week 14 coming over the hill. Do you want to take us through what we've got to look forward to?
Yeah, certainly. So round of 14 starts off on Friday, 7:45, as we've got the big hitters, Calgary taking on Hellas Verona. Before we are met with Saturday's fixtures. So on Saturday at 2 p.m, we've got Como at home to Monza. At 5 p.m, we've got Milan at home to Empoli. Before at 7:45, we've got the classic Bologna at home to Venezia. We move into Sunday's fixtures, so starting off at 11:30 p.m. or a.m. kickoff time, should I say. Udinese at home to Genoa. Before at 2 p.m, we've got Parma at home to Lazio, Torino at home to Napoli, and a big game for Andrea's side at 5 p.m. Fiorentina host Inter Milan. Before 7:45, Lecce hosts Juventus, potentially building on their victory tonight. Before, on Monday night, we haven't got our favourite fixture time of 5:30. However, it is replaced at 7:45, where we've got Roma hosting Atalanta. And that is game week 14.
Beautiful. Well, guys, as always, thank you for joining us. Another fantastic week in Serie A. The title race continues to be tight, and we are super excited to see where this one goes. Go, please, and check out our Premier League episode. I'm going to try and talk nicely about Spurs so you can see how that goes. But Andrea, where can our listeners and viewers find you when they want to keep up with your stuff?
Yes, they can find me on TikTok and YouTube at Calciofiore. And now Blue Sky as well. Join that now. Got to start using that.
Yeah, Blue Sky's the future, man. I tell you what, my mood is so much better. I now every so often just step onto Twitter and I'm like, oh my God, everything's horrible. And then just run back to my nice safe echo chamber on Blue Sky. It's very nice. So guys, you can find us on Blue Sky at Anglo-Italian Pod. We managed to get that handle. You can find us on X at Italian Anglo-Pod, on Threads, TikTok, all the other ones at Anglo-Italian Pod. If you're on YouTube, there's too many to remember. If you're on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe button. If you're listening on a podcast, give us a follow, give us a rating. And yeah, go check out the Premier League pod, guys. We'll see you next time. Ciao. A dopo.
Ciao.